The Passionate Leader, because leadership without passion is just the title.
Meeting. We got a collapse in the garage. Get the squad back equipment in here. We got an I-beam gone to a firefighter.
Get that out, urgent, transmit a second along.
This is where titles end and leadership begins. Ask yourself, what does it take to keep showing up day after day for 24 years in one of the toughest, most thankless jobs in public safety, and still believe in the power of positivity to change the culture of EMS? This week's guest is Ric Wilkinson, a paramedic whose career spans more than 2 decades of service, teaching, and advocacy from his early days as a volunteer firefighter who stumbled into the EMS class and never looked back to becoming a field instructor program manager. Ric has worn just about every hat there is in the profession. Armed with a master's in emergency management and certs in ACLS, PALS, BLS, PHTLS, TEC, PEPL, and EMS safety, and every other letter in the alphabet, Ric has dedicated his life to shaping the next generation of providers because to him, EMS isn't just a stepping stone, it's a profession that's growing, evolving, and worth fighting for. He's learned the hard way that leadership isn't about knowing more than the people you lead. It's about listening more and speaking less. And through every tough call, every long shift, and every lesson taught, Ric's stayed grounded in one belief: positivity breeds powerful change. So ask yourself, are you leading with the kind of mindset or just managing the moment? Welcome to The Passionate Leader, our guest today, Ric Wilkinson. Welcome, my man.
Thank you so very much for having me, and obviously very humbling to hear all those things out loud, but it is who I am, and that is what I do. So, it's okay to have those things, but I just tell people, I'm still just Ric, the motivated paramedic.
Yeah, everybody has to start somewhere, right? And
Absolutely.
when people get the opportunity to do things like this, it really shows just how much people can accomplish in what short time we have here on this beautiful piece of rock we call Earth. So for those of us, I mean, I dove into what you are.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, why don't we kind of walk through how you got to where you are now?
Sure. You had mentioned it earlier that 1996 or 97, I was living in Jupiter, Florida. Beautiful town, northern Palm Beach County. And a friend of mine says, "Hey, you want to be a volunteer fireman?" And I said, "I don't know what that is." And mostly because in Florida, I know you're in the New England states where volunteer fire is just a matter of normalcy.
Mhm.
Now in Alabama, I see that, but
Yeah, yeah.
growing up in Florida, volunteer fire was to me a very foreign concept.
Hmm.
Didn't understand it, didn't even know it existed in the real world of, something from the 50s, in my mind.
Sure. Yeah.
And it was a combination department. It's Martin County Fire Rescue, still in existence today.
Hmm.
They actually were running a frontline engine paid, and then the second in engine was your volunteers. So they would get like Station 36 would get a call, the volunteers would go staff the station. And
Okay. Yep.
so, and if they got a second call, they would run the call. Fire, EMS, it didn't matter. And then it just kind of blossomed from there. I went to EMT school on their dime and had no problem paying them back, the time like a lot of us do. Enjoyed it and started, like many people do, on the private ambulance service.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I hear people all the time boo-booing whoever. I tell people, look, take what you want. You can go to the best services, the worst services. It is what you put into it, and it is what you get out of it. If you don't like it there, that's okay. There's another place to go. But don't let other people change your mind just because they have a bias towards this
Mm,
private service or this public service or this, as you well know, there's plenty of public services that people don't like.
right.
There's
Yeah.
plenty of private services that people love to badmouth, but guess what? They employ a bunch of people.
That's true. Yeah.
They give people a lot of jobs and a lot of experience to go to those public services later. I think a lot of those public services would kind of not as much of experience if those private services weren't around, but that's just my
Mm.
own opinion.
Yeah. No, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
But I kind of grew from volunteer fire. Went to paramedic school in 2001, graduated, and was very lucky to work at a public service um, as a double paramedic. So for me, that was very very humbling. I was a brand new paramedic and had a
Mm.
senior paramedic with me.
Oh,
That
cool.
rescue lieutenant that had at that time he was probably 25 years in, and he
Mhm.
was the guy. His specialty was EKGs. He could look at a 12 lead and just flip through them. Oh, he's this vessel's clogged, and you're like, oh my gosh, how are you so good? And
Yeah. Yeah.
I hate to date myself, but our EKG, our 12 lead, plugged into the patient's phone line.
Oh, geez. Okay. Yep.
So in the house, you'd be like, hey, where's your landline? And you would plug it in and transmit it to the hospital. So just in my short time of 24 years, we have obviously come a very long way.
Mm. Yeah, that's a huge advancement, right? I mean, that's because you're at the mercy. What if they don't have a phone line? Now what do
Well,
you
and
do?
well, 25 years ago, almost everybody still did.
Right.
And obviously where I work now, we have epochs in the field, ultrasound in the field, blood
Mm.
administration, and that's just in my county. So I mean, just 25 years is unbelievable, and who knows where we'll be in just 10 years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, man, that's really I mean, you touched a lot on it. So Florida is extremely heavy in the career staffed, departments. And they're obviously very successful. What about the medical field really was sort of what, was your calling that really just keeps you really passionate about it?
So I have to say, obviously I started as a volunteer fire where I did both. I
Mm.
fought fire, and honestly, my scariest fire moment was a brush fire
Okay.
where the wind shifted, all the silt stood up, and you couldn't see anything. And guess what? We don't
Mm.
wear on brush fires.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't wear breathing apparatus, and it becomes really bad really fast. But
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was very lucky though to experience both sides. But to answer your question with the medical, I guess I really liked the immediate feedback. Like
Okay. Yeah.
somebody's sugar's low, I gave you sugar, and you woke up.
Yeah.
You're choking. I can clear your foreign body airway obstruction, and I can try to fix you. And I guess I just like that instant. Everyone likes gratification to their job,
Yeah.
and that's not a bad thing. But I was very lucky to again be around people that I try to I try to emulate them in myself.
Mm.
That new guy that is scared. He's actually fearful of what's going to happen his first day. Whether
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
that EMT especially, maybe he's 19 years old, 20 years old, and oh my gosh, and now
Mm.
he's working on the ambulance.
Yeah, no, yeah, yeah, for sure. There's a lot to be. So me personally, I'm one of those. I get wicked intimidated because we don't do. I'm fortunate enough, at least for me, that I'm just fire. Our EMS
Yeah.
side is its own entity.
Okay.
I am licensed. It's a requirement for the state of New Hampshire to be full time. You also have to be at the very minimum in EMTB. It was by far of my classes one of the harder ones for me to take, and really it was the terminology that was the hardest part of the entire class for me to learn. But I had so in New Hampshire we have different companies can do are basically our EMS providers, and we test at the state level, but the state doesn't really have an EMS credentialing class. And the particular person I went to, man, he was spot on. He was able to really dumb it down for me and make it really simple. And he knew fireman terminology, so he was able
Yeah.
to kind of commingle the two. I mean, and I still was. I don't want to say resistant, but I was like, man, this just really and it still isn't really my jam. But at the
Right.
time, we had an 18-year-old, and he says to me, he goes, "Man, JP, you got to remember, helping people's helping people." He goes, whether it's a 9-volt battery in their smoke detector or, they have a laceration on their hand. He goes, "You're just helping people." And as soon as he did that, it really helped kind of open up my, my eyes a lot.
And
And
and like you said though, is helping people. And
mm,
where I work, Madison County, Alabama, again, 420,000 people live here.
yep.
Supposedly, can't say I can verify this, but we have probably one of the most population of PhDs in the world.
Okay.
um,
Yep.
because of NASA, Blue Origin.
Mm,
Everybody's here. Facebook is here. Everybody's here, and that doesn't even
yep.
include the Defense and Space Force or I'm sorry, not Space Force, Space Command.
Yep.
All
Yep.
this stuff is here, and I say that because we're one ambulance service covers this entire county, and then we have 16 different volunteer fire departments in between, in
Mm,
addition to two career departments that are very large, And
Yep.
then, of course,
Yep.
the airport is everything. They actually do police, fire, and EMS at the airport department. So they're
Wow. Okay. Yep.
public safety.
Yes. Yep. That's coming around. I've talked to had a few guests on the show that have done the public safety concept, and it's new, well,
Yeah,
newer, I should say.
yeah,
That the
newer. Yeah,
my hometown is using that model. It's not a you are one, you're just a public safety department, but it's definitely they try to have their staff as cross trained as possible to fill in, different voids and different roles, which is great. It's a
yep.
business practice that works for them. I don't think that it's going to work in too terribly many communities in our neck of the woods, but we're gonna have to figure out something when it comes to staffing and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, I think in
um,
those low resource areas, it's a little bit
yeah,
easier to do when you have, three officers on and that may be all you have in that county or that small town, or, they may
right,
have to
right,
be EMTs and firemen as well. But, staffing is never easy, no matter where you go, public,
mm,
private, hospital based, it doesn't matter. And part of my advocacy is I try to go to EMS on the Hill as much as I can.
yep.
It's in April, and you would be amazed of the states that don't send anyone,
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah,
like not even one person, public, private, not a fire chief, not a police chief, not a EMS chief,
nothing, huh?
not a hospital administrator. And
Yeah,
yes, it's an NAEMT event. You don't have to be a member to go. I'm not advocating for them or against them. It's just their
sure.
event. And I like the NAEMT. That's my own personal opinion. People say what they want. I like the way their classes are worked. I like the way
Mm,
they do their thing. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but when it comes to EMS advocacy, I think they're kind of the big person in the room.
sure.
Um,
Yep.
they're definitely the one poking the bear, advocating for bills that, like, there's one right now called EMS Counts Act,
Okay.
where you're a you're a firefighter. You primarily do fire.
Yes. Yep.
You would do EMS as needed, but your primary job day to day is fire response or fire rescue.
Hmm.
And the EMS counts is trying to change the way we count first responders in the country. Because right now, say New Hampshire, they know how many people are certified in the state, both fire and EMS. They have a state, somebody at the state office knows that number.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, the problem is, what if you volunteer for another agency? Are they counting you once, twice? Are they counting you as a fireman? Are they counting you as an EMT? Are they, maybe you work part time as an ER tech as an EMT as well.
Sure.
So the
Yep.
problem is right now the data they're collecting is you're either a firefighter or you're an EMS provider. So we're not getting really good data of
Okay.
how
Yep.
many EMS providers are in the nation. So we're trying to get the Department of Labor to count that, I guess, more accurately.
Mm,
That are you career? Are you paid? Or partial paid? Are you full volunteer? Are you, just there's so much there that isn't there, that isn't being counted properly. So when we go to tax funding or hospital-based services or anything like that, volunteer-based, where they're not getting enough money to do
yeah.
the job.
I was just gonna ask. That was a good kind of a transition. I mean, do you feel that once we get the numbers and the stats, it'll help kind of maybe come back? Because there's no, I mean, we can call it the elephant in the room, but there's no hiding around the fact that this is, one of the most thankless and certainly one of the most underpaid and appreciated industries out there. Do you feel that once the numbers are out, it might help with that a little bit?
I think it will help, but I also think one of the biggest problems that I can say from the EMS only side of the
Sure.
house,
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
is that we suck at advocacy. Look
Sure.
at fire. Just use fire for example. Fire has mustache calendars. We got the Brotherhood. We got the
Mm,
unions. We got PACs in Washington that are political action groups, and I mean they are on it. If there's a conference to go at, they're at it.
yeah.
And that takes money, and that takes people wanting to do that. That takes chiefs funding it. That takes chief giving you a week off to go to Las Vegas.
Yeah. No, you're correct. Yep.
Where EMS providers don't do that.
Yeah.
And whether
Okay.
it's public or private or hospital based or tribal, it doesn't matter. If you notice, very few of those services you see at these conferences,
That's a
even
good
at like
point.
EMS World or, yeah, a lot of providers go, but we're going to look at the cool trucks. We're going to look
Y-
at the new ultrasound. We're going to look at the new toys, that's great because we want to be really good providers. But when
Yeah.
it comes to strategic thinking, high level, to give you an example, in the federal House of Representatives,
Mm.
there is one EMS provider that's actively an EMS provider, and he's from Alabama
Oh, really? Okay.
in the whole House. Now, there's
Wow.
plenty of retired firemen and police officers and doctors and nurses, and
Sure. Yeah.
so he is actively licensed in the state of Alabama and still works with the volunteer fire department. So, in at the same level, the state of Alabama House has one active EMS provider in the entire House of Representatives for the state of Alabama, and ironically, they're at the same department.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but think about that. Think about how much, if you walked in the House of Representatives at your state and said, "Hey, how many of you have been a member of a volunteer fire department?" You'd get a bunch of hands. You
Sure.
get a
Yep.
bunch of hands. Or, "Hey, how many of you had your dad or your brother or your sister join a volunteer fire?" Oh my gosh, yes, yes, yes.
Mm.
But then when you say the same thing about EMS, like, "Yeah, my mama did it for 5 years and got burned out and left."
Yeah.
So we're not good at advocating for ourselves and making EMS, like you said earlier, not a stepping stone, but a profession.
Yes.
And
Yep.
and I tell people fire has about 150 years on us.
Mhm.
EMS is only 50 years old.
Yeah. Yep.
So you guys are 150 years ahead of knowing all those little ins and outs of fundraising and advocacy and political action and passing the boot. That's just a simple example. Think about that. Pass the boot
Yeah.
is a international effort,
Right.
and it works every year. And I mean, that's just one example of how well connected fire is throughout the world,
Mm.
where EMS is changing state to state. Alabama does it different than Tennessee, different than New Hampshire. So we have no coordinated effort at the federal level. Where if you go to England, for example, the only way to get your paramedic license in England is to have a bachelor's degree. End of story.
Really?
Yeah, there's no other way.
Okay.
And now their bachelor's degree is 3 years, but that's okay. It's still, but that is their only way. There is
Yeah.
no tech school. There's no, I'm going to get it later. I'm going to work on the truck for a year. No, you don't work on the truck until you are a paramedic. And it's federally there. So it's all one, like think of National Registry at the federal level, endorsed by the government.
Yeah. So I guess that really bodes the question. I mean, how do we bridge this gap? I mean, is there um how can people help, or how, for followers and listeners and anything like that?
Yeah.
I guess what's the best way that that you could surmise is the best, to help bridge that gap between, because like you said, I mean, the EMS is a very new service per
Yeah.
se.
Absolutely.
But we have to be able to sort of almost expedite the process to getting EMS side caught up to the fire service side with, community involvement. I mean, if you had a magic ball or
hmm
a world of, deep pockets, how would you go about trying to bridge that gap?
So the first thing I would do is personally, I would make paramedics have at least a 2-year degree.
Okay.
Now, people say, just because I have a 2-year degree, that does not make me a better provider. Just because I have a piece of paper that says I have an AS
Mm,
degree in whatever doesn't make me a better provider. Well, I would say you are correct. That piece of paper doesn't make that paramedic card more effective.
mm,
But through evidence-based research and other actual studies, they have proved if you were to use parallel thinking, like a BSN has a 4-year degree and an ASN has a 2-year degree, they
hmm.
found that the 4-year nurses made less medical errors.
Okay.
So just if we use that alone and said, wouldn't we like to hurt people less? Isn't that enough to make you get a degree? I mean, why does it
Sure.
have to be some horribly big? Because the
Yeah.
first thing
Yeah.
I always
Yeah.
hear is, the first thing that every fire chief, EMS chief I tell this to, well, they're not going to get paid anymore, so why should they do it?
Yep.
And that's the first argument. I'll pay for you to go to paramedic school, but I'm not paying for your degree.
Yeah.
And that's,
No. Yep.
whoop, test. And but I mean, that's the first argument that I would get. So if I had the magic ball, first is 2-year degrees for paramedics,
Yeah.
and then I would have a national certification that all the states have to cover. Now,
Yes.
there's similar parallels with the EMS compact that is out there, and
Mm.
that, if I'm not mistaken, is in over 30 states. So what that is, for example, if I'm an Alabama licensed paramedic and I go to the state of Missouri
Yep.
and I say, hey, I got a job in Missouri. I'm working in Kansas City. And they go, great, give me a copy of your Alabama. So I give them a copy and they go, great, you're a Missouri paramedic. Like, no joke, I've done it that quick.
Really?
Like,
Wow.
there's no, I filled out one piece of paper, sent them a copy, and they verified it with Alabama, and they went, yep, that's Rick. Here's your license. Like, same day.
Holy smokes.
So that's the way it's supposed to work. And
Yeah.
I took a program management job as a paramedic in Missouri teaching paramedic.
Yep.
And I was like, hey, I got to get my job and I got to get my license. They're like, sure, just send us a copy. Aren't you a compact state member? And I was like, yeah. And they said, done. You'll have it by the end of the day. And I
That's
was like,
awesome. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, at first I was like, yeah, very like, yeah, okay, yeah, okay,
Right,
government
right.
entity,
Yeah,
and there I was
skeptical
like,
as hell. Yeah.
yeah, and I got an email an hour later. They're like, here you go, and I was like, oh, well, thank you. But
Jeez. Okay.
so
Yeah.
the concept works. So we already have people that are buying in. We already have people that are
Yes.
in the groove. Now in New Hampshire, how many levels of EMS do you have?
Three. We have paramedics, advanced, which used to be known as the eyes, and
Yep.
then medics. Or sorry,
And so,
E's. Sorry, basic,
yep.
advanced, and then paramedic.
Great. So most of the country is like that. Some of the states are recognizing EMR, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah,
Um,
sorry, you're yes, there is EMR. Yeah, I was looking, I skipped the EMR because
oh no,
so I
that's totally
yeah,
understandable. Yeah, but most states are following the National Registry groove of EMR, EMT,
yes.
advanced, and paramedic, which is great because whether we like National Registry or not, they are the licensing people in the country right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that don't like them, okay, then come up with something better. But right now, that's who we have. So I would do 2-year degrees for paramedics. I would have a national that every state is going to recognize the 4 levels of EMS, whether they
Yeah.
like it or not. And then we're going to have to come. I feel that if you're a 911 service, then you're going to have to be funded by tax funded.
Yeah. Yep.
And I know in some cities that's impossible. In some parts of the country that's,
Oh, sure.
now I work for a hospital-based service.
Mm,
So I'm not saying a hospital couldn't run 911, but I'm saying those would have to be like case by case basis or like a
sure.
state county cooperative. Like
Yep.
the
Yep.
hospital runs it, but maybe they get some subsidy from the county or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, here's what's really funny. In most states, if I'm getting my math right, there's about 15 states in the country that EMS is considered essential.
Yep.
And what that means even changes state to state. So in Alabama, for example, just because we're considered essential, and by the way, Alabama only made theirs in 2023, essential.
Really?
And yeah, and there's more that aren't in the country than are. But for example, in Alabama, just because we're considered essential, all that means is that they can use public money to help subsidize a private service that maybe got a 911 contract. That's all that means. It doesn't mean you have to provide the service. It
Gotcha.
just
Okay.
means that if there was a county that said, hey, I'll give a $500,000 subsidy to an ambulance service that wants to come in and run our calls,
Mm,
before that law was in Alabama, it was considered public money can't be given to a private company. So
yep.
like a company like AMR or Falc couldn't come in and say, I want the 500,000. They'd say, well, we can't because you're a private company. So, but
Gotcha.
that's Alabama's law. So that means they don't have to provide EMS.
Mm,
Like you couldn't
okay.
sue the county commissioner and say, well, there was nobody came and got my sick kid. And you're like, well, I'm not required to.
Yes. That is one of our deputy chiefs does he dual serves on both our ambulance and the fire side.
Yeah.
And he had mentioned something to the effect of, we don't have to provide medical services which is scary to think that in this day and age there's no requirement for a community to actually provide essential life, preserving services to its citizens. Crazy to think
And
that it's not required.
And if I had that crystal ball or that magic ball of money, I think more
Yeah.
importantly than the degrees and more importantly than the national registry or national level is that people have to go talk to their elected officials,
Mm,
you know, and
sure.
everyone likes to think of, the vice president, the president, the speaker of the house. Those are all big wigs we see every day in the news. Doesn't matter what
Yeah.
party that you're
Yep.
into. That's what we see. Most people know their governor, and then they don't know anybody else from
Right.
there down. They
Yep.
don't know who their lieutenant governor is. They don't know and I don't know all of them, but I know my local people that are my county commissioners or my city commissioner, and I tell people the most political change you could ever do to help EMS is to go to your local town council meeting, your village meeting, your
Mm,
county commission,
sure.
and go during public time and ask a question. Hey, is EMS essential in my area? And if it is, what does that mean? Because I
Sure.
had to actually work through my House rep to get an attorney general's opinion of what that meant.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like, it's not like publicly, I mean, I'm sure if I dig down deep enough, I could find it, but
Sure.
I was like, I'm going to ask my elected official because they're there to serve us,
As they are.
and
Yep.
right. And that's what I think a lot of people forget is that, especially with EMS, think about any fire program that you've been around in your career is that, budget time comes up and they're like, man, we got to buy new something.
Yeah. Yep.
And, whatever X is, they got to have it. Turnouts, hoses, a new nozzle, a new set of nozzles, whatever that is, and they're never cheap,
Oh, no. Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
But most cases they figure out a way to do it. Not always, not every department gets everything they want. But if it's something that you could prove to like a county commission or a town commission, like, hey, we got to have this, or engine one's out of
Yeah.
service, they figure out a way. But when you try that same thing with ambulance services, they're like, well, we'll just call the ambulance from the next county over as backup.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
that'll be 35 minutes away. But as soon as you tell somebody their house is burning down and they're like, well, engine one's got to have that hose.
Yeah.
And we got
No,
to
you're
figure out
you're
a way to
right.
come up with $10,000,
Yes.
you
It
know?
it it all revolves around it's the thanklessness. People what's the word I'm looking for? People never really want to fund the services until they actually need it themselves or a loved one needs it. Because I've had to use our ambulance. My gosh, I think it was a while ago now because my daughter's now 11. But when she was younger, she had real bad asthma, and
Okay.
even being in the service, I mean, there's nothing more than it's worse for me than seeing that because you just can't do a damn thing about it.
You can't fix
Um,
them.
yeah, and I mean that whoo, man, this is really really good stuff. Um, so to that, and kind of covering the all the bases here. One of the things that you mentioned burnout, and I think that's
Yeah.
it's a huge problem, especially in the EMS side, because we get those, the same people that call all the time, the frequent flyers, if you will, if we want to use
Yeah.
a
Absolutely.
common terminology.
Yep.
Um, what is something that you've kind of used and found in throughout your career that sort of has helped you, avoid that emotional fatigue and still be able to have that the heartfelt care and compassion and stuff like that.
So I'll use one of your terms that I have told people about. I try not to be a bottom feeder.
Nice. I
And
like it. Yep.
yeah, and what that means is for me, not being a bottom feeder is not being Oscar the Grouch.
Okay.
Is that we all know those people. They hear that,
Yes.
just like you said, they heard the address and they're like, it's him,
Mm-hmm.
it's her. We've been there 100 times in 100 days, and they are on it the whole way there. It's on. You're
Mm.
just Oscar the Grouch the entire way. They're complaining. I'm going to tell the chief. I'm going to tell the mayor. I'm going to get the cops out there. They haven't even got there yet, and they've already got themselves jacked up to like number 10.
Yeah.
And I try not to do that. I try to take every call as what it is. And sometimes it is still that guy that just wants whatever.
Sure.
And the best example I can give is that a local large fire department, I was at a chief's conference and I got to listen to this guy tell this very quick story where he said this guy called like 220 times in 1 year.
Holy
And he
smokes.
like you said, this is the chief with 5 bugles.
Yep.
He's the grand poobah
Mm.
and of like a 50 station paid service.
Oh wow.
So, big dude,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Lots of
Yeah.
money. They've done the math of how much money this patient has taken away from their department because he always calls, they give him D10, and he refuses.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
well, he's at the station and it comes out, and he's like, I'm going. I'm going to go see this guy. I've never met him. I want to know who it is. So
Yeah.
he lets the paramedics be paramedics. He doesn't, unprofessional and nothing like that. But he said he's building himself up. Like he's ready to just rip this guy a new one.
Yeah.
And he wakes up, he introduces himself. Hey, I'm the guy with 5 bugles,
Yeah.
and this is my house. And you have cost us $150,000 in the last year
Oh
of
gosh.
time, energy, all this stuff, right?
Sure, sure.
And he's like, can you answer me why? And of course, he was ready to like just jump him. He's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I need to go to the doctor. And he was like, what? He's like, do you mean the hospital? No, no, no. I need to have my eyes checked. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, I need those little reader glasses. And he was like, what do you mean? He's like the little ones from Walgreens? Yeah, like the little +2, +3s. He's like, why did you never say anything? He goes, none of your paramedics ever asked
Oh jeez.
because they were so mad and they were
Yeah.
so once I heard that, it enabled me in my mind to reapproach the way we think of those homeless people, or not always homeless, but chronic users, hyper users,
Yeah.
Uber
Yeah.
users is what the terminology that
Ooh.
I was here. But
Yep.
but
Yep.
even though that patient did call like 211 times in 1 year and
Yeah.
really did cost, well, here's the funny part. The chief said, so you just need me to go to Walgreens and get you those little readers. He's like, yeah. So he went there. He came back. He gave him like 5 pair. He gave him his
Okay.
personal cell phone number and said, if they ever break, you just call me and I will get you more glasses. Well, here's the best part. He never called again.
No way.
But how much were those medics could have stopped that earlier
Sure.
by
Yep.
not being Oscar the Grouch?
Yeah.
So your term is bottom
Yeah.
feeder. My term is Oscar the Grouch.
I like it. I love
You
it.
know,
What a good spin. It's so easy. Even in the
yeah,
fireside, we can have it
yep,
where it's, typically it's the alarm activations. It's
yep,
like, okay, so
yep,
maybe after the fifth time we've been there in a week, we're like, all right, do we need to maybe rethink where our smoke detectors are located? Is it
yep,
that they're getting older, so they're a little more sensitive? And it sometimes it just takes that voice of reason or somebody who hasn't, like you said, the chief, he did some research, he went over there and cooler heads finally prevailed. But it's easy to get, we are, I mean, generally speaking, everybody in either side of, public safety is a type A, personality. So we are high strung as it is, and we can certainly fly off the handle at a moment's notice, especially if we're getting burned out, because if I'll look at it from, because anytime we have nuisance calls, it's
yeah,
usually in the middle of a rash of other calls. We had our school in town one time. They had 3 alarm activations in the course of 4 hours, and during that rash of calls, we had a rubbish truck roll over on a back road. So now I'm tied up with one of our trucks while I had to send the rest of the crew in another truck to go, get the resources to go figure out this accident. So now I'm like, you guys are tying us up for this, you know, I'm sitting here tied up with a $1 million truck, waiting for, the recall, maintenance guy to show up. I'm like, just do your freaking job and fix the damn problem. But it happens, so I think
yeah.
it's a really, really good
And
example of
well,
stuff like that.
and and burnout, like you said, how do we prevent it? If we had again the magic wand and you go,
Yeah.
okay, Rick, I want you to stay with us for 20 years. We want you to retire and be happy and walk away, but how do we keep you here,
Yep.
keep you compassionate, keep you passionate, and keep you motivated all at the same time? Now, obviously, we all go through periods in life where life happens that has nothing to do with work.
Yep.
And most of us, not all of us, I know, but most of us have time that we could take in small amounts. Not saying a month
Mm,
off, but we could take 2 shifts off. Most of us have that built up in a bank that, as much as we don't like to, we could.
yeah.
And I think that we have to understand that when life happens, you have to react to it in a way just like you would at work. If
Mm,
there's a fire, you send people to the fire. If there's
right.
a cardiac arrest, you send people that know how to treat people in cardiac arrest to that event. But
Hmm.
when we have divorce, addiction, injury, somebody's hurt at home, all those things, you then get these really type A people that would do anything for their patient.
Mm,
Hey, I need to go home because my kid's sick. And you hear them almost like groveling to the supervisors like they're embarrassed.
Yeah.
Like, I hate to ask, chief, but I got to go home. My 2-year-old got a fever of 103 and I'm just worried to death. Now, the good chief says, absolutely. Let's get you
Right.
off the truck. If I need to come to the scene and relieve you, whatever that takes, those good
Yes.
chiefs, those good supervisors, those are the ones I like to emulate
Right.
because those are the ones that I guarantee if that paramedic or firefighter has a chance to do overtime or work with that chief, they do it.
Mm.
They're like, man, that chief made sure I got home.
Yeah.
That chief called in an hour and asked about my daughter.
Right.
Those little, small, insignificant things in the big picture
Sure.
mean everything to the provider.
Yeah. Oh, they
And
do
it
for
doesn't
sure.
have to be, the CISM and you ran a terrible call. It's home life.
Mm.
But you shared just enough. And a lot of chiefs are like, don't tell me anything. I don't want to know. If you got to go home, fine, you get to go home. But, and I'm not saying that's wrong. It's just everybody's personality is a little different. But the
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
burnout is, you have got to understand that we can't fix everybody. And I
Mm.
think that's hard because if, the new AHA recommendations came out. So I've been spending the last month of my TikToks on
Yeah.
this is new, this is new, this is okay. No, they didn't ban the Lucas. Don't freak out. Everything's okay. The world's not going to end tomorrow because the AHA said you can't use your Lucas. And they didn't say that. They just said they don't have enough evidence. But I say
Right.
all that because one of their recommendations is we don't do enough training in death notification.
All right, everyone. It's time for our power check. Here's where we stand. Rick walked us through a career that started in the volunteer fire service and grew into 24 years of dedicated EMS service, teaching, and advocacy. We hit how the job evolved from landline 12 leads to blood product and transfusions, ultrasound stuff in the field, and why that matters to the people who are doing the work. He drove home a clear message. EMS is not a stepping stone. It's a profession that deserves real standards, real advocacy, and leaders willing to show up where decisions are made. We also hit burnout head on. Stop being Oscar the Grouch on frequent flyers. Stop dragging frustration into every shift. And remember that compassion is a deliberate choice. Listen more, speak less, and take care of your people. Positivity is not fluff, it changes careers. In the second half with Rick, we will break down tough topics that we never trained for, such as death notifications, allowing families to witness resuscitations, why EMS burnout hits a 5-year mark, how seniority can trap young medics in the ambulance, and we close rather with a real talk about passing the NREMT and staying a student no matter how long you've been in the game. Thank you for spending time with us today on The Passionate Leader. If something today hit home, don't just sit with it, share it. Follow The Passionate Leader across all platforms and be sure to join us every Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our TikTok Kitchen Table Talk lives. If you believe in the movement, please consider subscribing to our Patreon page and help fuel something bigger. Be the kind of leader someone else is praying for, and no matter what comes your way, remember this: lead with passion, serve with humility, and leave no room for bottom feeders. Until we meet again, guys, stay safe.